One of the things you will need to bear in mind when creating your Finnish CV is that your CV doesn't have to be chaotic. You need to come with clarity and honesty, because of course you don't want the employer, there are so many applications coming in when a job is being posted, so the employer doesn't have so much time to be trying to decode whatever you're trying to write. So with that, I'm going to be showing you what are some of the stages that you need to insert in your CV that is very, very vital to be found in your CV for it to make it more appealing to your employer. Hello guys, you're welcome back to my channel, and today we'll be talking about how to create a professional CV for the Finnish job market. If you are someone that is interested to create a CV, or you're finding it challenging to create a CV, stay tuned and watch this video to the end, because I'll be giving you the details of everything that you need. So yeah, before you dive into the whole hassle of creating a Finnish CV, you need to be able to understand firstly what are some of the things that your employer will require of you, especially in Finland. I'm emphasizing Finland because it's very, very different for every other country. Yes, and so before we get into that, I have with me here my laptop which is I've written down a lot of things, because of course there are so many things that you need to bear in mind when creating your CV. So this is going to help us to follow through, chronologically. Okay, so in this video I'm going to do my best to be as detailed as possible, but we are going to cover two main things in this video. That is understanding what the Finnish employer requires of you as an employee who is trying to apply to a specific job, and secondly we'll look at a sample of a Finnish CV. So one of the things you will need to bear in mind when creating your Finnish CV is that your CV doesn't have to be chaotic. You need to come with clarity and honesty, because of course you don't want the employer, there are so many applications coming in when a job is being posted, so the employer doesn't have so much time to be trying to decode whatever you are trying to write. So you want to make sure that your CV is very clear and honest, because this is going to save you a lot of stress, so that you don't go around creating a CV that will be thrown into the trash or the dustbin. You don't want that. So firstly, what are some of the things that the Finnish employer will require of you? Bear in mind the relevant qualifications that are required for you depending on the job that you are applying for. For example, if you are applying to the healthcare, you need to make mention of your qualifications, that is your Vavera qualifications. Depending on, I'm talking mostly about healthcare professionals here, because Vavera is mostly concerned with healthcare personnel or the practice, or issuing licenses for healthcare personnel to practice in Finland. I'm going to emphasize on Vavera certifications later on in another video, but today we're just talking about the CV. Additionally, you want to insert your professional experience. That is, it could be if you're a new student, what is your practice, what kind of practice did you do? For example, your practice sessions in the hospital, summer jobs, and all of those things. Make sure to insert them and the time frame as well. And additionally, if you had a previous job, where did you work, and all of that. Fourthly, you want to make sure that in your CV you insert what language skills you have. If it is Finnish or Swedish, what level of the Finnish or Swedish you have. And also if you have additional languages, that will be a bonus for you. So if you insert all of those things in your application, it's going to save you the hassle, and they will know that you came prepared. Another thing I want you to bear in mind is that when creating a CV, it doesn't have to be too lengthy or chaotic. 1 to 3 pages of a CV is a good way to go. Now for the second part of it, the common structure of a CV, of a Finnish CV, has about 8 different sections that you need to insert for clarity. And the first one has to do with the initial stage, that is your personal information. When it comes to the basic information, do not put in your full address, for example, or date of birth or marital status. You don't need to do that, or even your Finnish security number. For example, if it's needed by your employer, they're going to contact you then separately, or maybe when you actually gotten the job. But in a normal CV, that kind of detail is not very important. The second stage is about your personal or professional profile, and in this you talk about who you are as a person. Let's say, for example, you are a nurse, and how long you've been working, what places, or if you have a specialized experience, what specialized experience you have. That is all, because of course in the course of the interview you are going to have details. But the third, you have to talk about your that's your work experience. For example, you can talk about your job title, job description, and the location or the duration of where you worked. In this, you can list a couple of workstations where you work at. For example, if you are talking about students, maybe you list where you did your summer job, where you did some practices, or maybe part-time jobs. You can list them, and make sure to always put the most recent job that you've had at the first, and then the others can come later. And when you're writing this, for example, as shown in the screen, you write the job title, the name of the place, and also a short description of what kind of job you were doing. Let's say, for example, if you were a student, you can say, okay, you helped patients, you shared medications and stuff like that, if you have the medication right, by the way. Next off, you have to talk about your koulutus, that's your education. Now, which highest education do you have? Do you have a bachelor degree in nursing, or probably a professional degree? Whatever professional degree you have, mention it there, the school you went through, the university you went through. But then if you are someone who actually got maybe a degree outside of Finland, make sure to specify that it is outside of Finland and the duration. If your education was outside of Finland, you have to make sure that it has been evaluated by Valvira and then as accepted for you to actually gain rights to practice in Finland. This is especially for those who are in the healthcare, because of course Valvira is the board for healthcare and welfare that checks every certificate in Finland or out of Finland. If you came from outside Finland, they have to check it to then compare that, okay, it is up to the Finnish standard for you to be granted the rights to practice in healthcare. The fifth section in your CV has to show your licenses and certifications. This section includes, for example, you mentioned that you have a Valvira certification or a medication pass, that is LOVE in Finland, or a hygiene pass, or also a first aid training, a certificate of first aid training. You insert all of these like in writing, just mention them, and later on you can attach them in your CV when applying. Every registered nurse needs to have the rights to administer medications, and you have to be able to show that, okay, if you've actually gained the certification or not. Usually for new students or for newly graduating students, they might not have it. So for your first job application, you might not have it, or maybe you can have part of it. So if you have part of it, you can always insert in your CV that, okay, you have this and this. If you have PVK or you have Perus LOVE, you also mention it in this session. So the next session, or that is the sixth session that we are going to be looking at, that is very, very essential to be found in your professional CV, is the kieli taito, that is your language skills. Now in Finland, most often before you get a job, especially in healthcare, you are required to know at least Finnish or Swedish to a B1 level. So you want to be able to mention it to your employer that you have this level of language, so that even though they are going to be testing you during your interview, you will be able to prove that, okay, you have this level of language. And most especially with this part, you want to actually be very honest, because it will not be a good show for you if you go and say you have a very high level of Finnish language, and then during the interview you are unable to defend this fact. So of course, if you have an A1 or a B1 level of Finnish or Swedish, try as much as possible to put it there as it is, because they are going to be comparing your speaking skills and eventually what you've written in your CV. Additionally, if you have other languages, let's say Russian or German or whatever language you have, you can as well insert it in your CV, because this is also going to give you an upper hand in case your workplace has like patients, or they need someone who is multilingual. Yeah. Seventh session, you have to insert your IT skills. For example, there are certain systems that we use here in Finland. So depending on your research and what skills or IT skills that your company requires, you can always insert it, or if you like, you can still insert even the additional system that you can use. So like I mentioned, Apotti is very important, Pegasus, ESCO, Life Care, Microsoft Teams or Microsoft Word, Office are some of the IT skills or IT systems that might be required. So it's good for you to mention them. Lastly, you have to mention about your strengths, because of course each employer wants to make sure that you are coming to be an asset to them and not a liability. So mentioning briefly your skill sets or your strengths is very, very important. For example, you can mention that you are a good team worker, or you are good at learning, whatever skill or whatever strength that you find, or maybe you are good to work under pressure. Whatever strengths that you have, make sure to write them down in your CV. Another additional tip, this is not a specific to be in your CV, but I just want to say that when writing your CV, try to use as much as possible very simple language. Do not try to impress the Finnish employer, because of course they already know Finnish, and if you are trying to impress them, then you go for the interview and you're unable to like defend yourself. That is actually going to give you a bad face, and you do not really want that. So use very simple sentences as much as possible, sentences that you can be able to defend yourself if you are asked a follow-up questions later on. I hope this video helped you so much. If you've learned one or two things from this video, please make sure to like, comment, share, and I'll see you in my next video. Moika.